Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Let's Make Dinner, your audio library of amazing dinner recipes you can always get on the table. I'm your host, Susie Weinrich. Happy holidays, everyone. If you are looking at this recipe today, then you are probably in the mood for a little Christmas or holiday baking, and that's exactly what we're doing today. Today, we are going to be making a fruitcake cookie. And don't be turned off, don't turn off the podcast episode by the word fruitcake. This is like an old-fashioned, updated version of fruitcake. So you're going to be eating it in a cookie form. It's still full of all of those holiday fruits. So candied cherries, dates, pecans, maybe some pineapple, depending on what kind of candied cherry mix you get. And it's all baked as a drop cookie, and they are absolutely tender and sweet and delicious, and I love them. I actually grew up eating these at my grandma's house when I was little, and I hope that you absolutely love them too. So usually I go over lots of different tips and tricks before we get into the full recipe. I only have a couple things to say before we move on to the recipe, and then within the actual recipe, I'm going to share all of the tips and tricks and things that you need to know to make the recipe perfect. But when you are in the grocery store looking for the candied cherries, sometimes people have a hard time finding these at the grocery store. During the holiday season, a lot of times they are kept actually on an end cap because they are very popular for, fruitcake and these cookies. So you can maybe find them there. Sometimes if you're at more of like a Target or a Walmart situation, you'll find them on like a holiday baking display, so you can look there as well. But they'll be in little clear plastic tubs, and they look like neon red and green cherries because they're a candied cherry. So it'll be like a maraschino cherry, but really sticky. And they are so good in this cookie. I swear to you, delicious. The other thing that you're going to need are dates. So I like to buy of course, pitted dates, and a lot of times I'll just find them whole in the produce section. But if you can find chopped dates, maybe near the raisins, then go ahead and buy those. The last ingredient I want to talk about are the pecans. There's an option in the recipe to place a whole pecan on the top of the fruitcake cookie, and I actually love how that looks. I like the extra texture and crunch on top of the cookie. So I like to buy whole pecans, chop part of them to mix into the batter, and then leave some of them whole to put on top. But if you don't want to use the pecan on top of the cookie, then you can just buy chopped pecans in the bag. So those are all of my ingredient tips. Let's get on to making this entire recipe. This recipe makes a ton of cookies. You're going to have around 50 cookies by the time you're done with this recipe. So this is a great one to take to cookie exchanges or to take to your neighbors, or you can even pop some in the freezer so you can save some for the actual Christmas week if you make them ahead. You'll start by preheating your oven to 400 degrees, and then you'll grab a large cookie sheet. And what I like to use always when I'm baking cookies is either a reusable Silpat, but I gotta say, here's what I'm gonna say about these. When people use reusable Silpats and they wash them with soap or they put them in the dishwasher, I can always taste the soap on whatever they bake on them. So if you use a reusable Silpat, just think about that next time you bake with it and see if you can taste the soap on whatever you're baking. What I prefer to use is parchment paper, and you can just get it, at your normal grocery store, probably in the same aisle where you'd find plastic wrap or foil. So line your baking sheet with the parchment paper or your Silpat. Then what you're going to do is cream together 2 sticks of softened butter and 2 cups of brown sugar. And this will take about 2 minutes. You can either use a handheld mixer or you can use a stand mixer with a paddle attachment. Then you're going to add in 2 eggs. I like to just add one at a time so that it starts to mix into the batter, and mix that for about another minute or 2. Now you're going to pour in half a cup of buttermilk and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. A little tip with the buttermilk, if that's not an ingredient you have or that you want to purchase, you can actually create your own buttermilk by combining kind of a scant half cup of buttermilk and 2 teaspoons of either lemon juice or vinegar. Let it sit for about 5 minutes, give it a stir, and then you can use it in the recipe. Basically, you're going to need that vinegar or that, I guess it's really an acid to activate your baking soda. So don't skip the buttermilk. So go ahead and mix that together for about another minute. Now at this point in the cookies, don't be alarmed if your batter is looking curdled. Once you get the flour and all the dry ingredients mixed in, it will not look so scary. In a separate bowl, you're going to sift together 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and a 1/4 teaspoon each of ground clove and ground nutmeg. So sift all that together and then add that flour mixture to the cookie dough until it just comes together. Now on a cutting board, you'll want to kind of just roughly chop up 2 cups of those candied cherries, and you can get those candied cherries either in red or green or a red and green mixture. I like the red and green mixture because I feel like it feels a little bit more festive. So give those a rough chop, as well as 2 cups of dates and then 1.5 cups of pecans. Chop all those together. And here is a fun cookie tip. Anytime you're making cookies, it doesn't matter what. You know, when you go to like a website like momsdinner.net and you see a cookie and you're like, why do my cookies not look like that? The tip that a lot of food bloggers or food stylists use are that they will save back a few of the mix-ins, and after you form your cookies, they'll actually dot the outside with those mix-ins, like, chocolate chips, nuts, in this case, the cherries, so that when they bake, those colors are really pronounced on the outside and make your cookies extra beautiful. So stir in the candied cherries, dates, and pecans into that cookie dough. And then once it's all together, it's time to bake. Just like the name says, on Mom's Dinner, it's a fruit cake drop cookie. So there's no need to roll, to cut out, to slice. This is literally a scoop and drop cookie. Each cookie will be like a heaping tablespoon of dough. So just scoop it out and drop it right onto that prepared baking sheet. If you're using the pecan half for the top of the cookie, you can lightly press one into the top of each cookie dough ball on the baking sheet. Then you're going to bake them for about 9 to 11 minutes. They're going to be done when the outside edge is just starting to turn golden, but the middle is going to be extremely soft. These are meant to be really soft and tender cookies. What's going to happen is after you bring them out of the oven, as they cool on the cookie sheet, they're going to continue to bake a little bit and they're going to firm up. So really don't bake them in the oven until they're brown all the way across. If you're baking these in batches, which I'm assuming you are, that you don't have an oven that can fit 50 cookies in it at the same time, you'll want to place that extra batter in the fridge while your other batches bake. That's just a good cookie tip, no matter what kind of cookie you're making. All right, and that is the full recipe for your holiday fruitcake drop cookies. The nice thing about these cookies is that you can actually freeze the baked cookies, or you can scoop out the dough and freeze the dough and bake it later. There's lots of options with these cookies. They're pretty simple to make, and they are extremely festive and perfect for Christmas. So as always, I will link this recipe in the show notes for you so you can find it when you're ready to make these cookies. I will also pop a link in there for all of my Christmas cookies and treats and deliciousness. So happy holidays, everybody. And until next time, I hope this episode of Let's Make Dinner makes your holiday time a little sweeter. See ya.